Welcome to Everything BK Nets podcast. We got the full team today. I got John, I got Dylan. We got a whole troop today, and the Nets have settled into their draft position. It looks like they're going to have the six worst odds. Dylan, I'll start with you today. Your reaction to the game and basically the Nets settled into that locked into that draft position where they'll have the six worst odds. What are your thoughts on those two things?
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate. I think a lot of us who were set in stone on the tank once we got our picks back last summer, we were kind of hoping for a much better position than what we're gonna be put in. Historically, the six odds aren't good. They've never went further than six. Most of the time, they drop to 7 or 8. So, not really too comfortable nor optimistic about a potential, top two, top three pick. But at the end of the day, I said it last night on Breezy's stream. At this point, I would prefer one or two or six. Um, I'm not high on Ace as much anymore. So to me, the only three picks that I will even be happy with are Flag, Harper, or Fears. So we'll see what happens. I mean, hopefully there's a world where they move up into the top two. I'm not getting my hopes up for it though, but definitely didn't take this as seriously as I was hoping the team would this year, and that all falls back on front office. So we'll see what they do moving forward.
I wanted to. They started the season off 9-10. Since then, they're 16-43, which includes winning 7 out of 9. So besides like two little stretches, they've been as bad as advertised, and not that 19 games is a little stretch. Um, your thoughts on like the 9-10 start? We talked about CJ and DFS shouldn't have been here when the season started. They were here. Is it just the Nets got off to that decent start, and they grew confidence and they believed in themselves and they started winning games?
No, I mean this season was ruined after the trade deadline when they didn't move Johnson. That's pretty self-explanatory. You don't keep a guy who's keeping you in games late in the fourth quarter. Um, and especially a player whose value was completely diminished up until the trade deadline, where he had risen his value. In no logical sense does it make any form of sense to keep a player of his stature with the value that he had at the time. So that's just complete malpractice. It's another fireable offense that you can add to the resume of Sean Marks. Um, and unfortunately, that ruined what could have been a higher probability in terms of draft lottery odds. So I know people like to mess with the system and want to test the lottery, but at the end of the day, if you could have been the third worst team in basketball, the lowest you'd get is probably pick 6 or 7. You're at 6 currently, and the lowest that you can get to is probably 9. So it's definitely not a game that I like to play. I've been more of a get straight to the point rather than a fuck around and find out type of person. But if that's what people want to do, that's what Marks did. You guys can live with the consequences if it doesn't happen. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not stressing about it anymore. I got 3 picks that I would be ecstatic about. I got 2 or 3 that I'd be cool with, but I'd have to see them play the first year and really see how they develop. Outside of that, though, it's definitely a disappointing season.
John, I want to get your take on the same thing. We'll get to the game in a bit. I want to get into the draft position. We're going to be drafted at 6. That's not what we envisioned. I know before the season, I predicted 24 wins. You predicted 14, I think. Um,
Yep.
so you were predicting a really, really bottomed out season. 14 wins is a low win total. They're drafting in the six worst odds. That's where they're going to be. Give me your thoughts on that and just how the season went.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because we're getting a lot of reactions from people on how this season went. And you think about it, a lot of people kind of tune what we've been saying. I mean, Zach Lowe, who was on the Ringer, said, I thought this team's strategy was when they traded back their own picks was they were going to suck for 2 years, but they couldn't even do that right. And then you saw Richard Jefferson yesterday said, hey, maybe the starters should have been pulled a lot earlier throughout the season. Like, there's people agreeing with what we're saying that this season really didn't go how it was supposed to go. This was supposed to be a very boring, predictable season where we knew this team was going to be a bottom team because by choice. because you want to get a top pick because we need that structure, that core. Instead, we let Jordy have all this autonomy because he must have struck a deal where it's like, I'm going to have a lot more input than a normal first-year head coach does. And, with Sean Marks, he doesn't really say much. So, of course, he was going to take the passive approach. And, boy, did this rotation surprise with Dennis Schroeder being some type of all-star those first 12 or 13 games. Then we won 3 consecutive games against the Kings, the Warriors, and the Suns, which I don't think anybody thought this team could do. And then we started overdoing expectations. Then he traded Dennis Schroeder away, and then he traded for D'Lo. So it was kind of like a very counterproductive move. Why did we trade a point guard that was helping us for another point guard that still, even though his numbers aren't that good, it was still helping us win games? And then you look at with Cam Johnson, like that was one of the worst decisions. You had 11 teams that wanted him before trade deadline. You didn't want to trade him because you needed 2 first-round draft picks so damn badly. All because this guy was having 3 great months, where before that, most of his career was averaging 13 points. So nobody was buying into Sean Marks' demands again. And instead of pivoting, he decided to keep Johnson because his leadership is so, so valuable. And then Nick Claxton, we saw with the $100 million investment, that was a horrible decision. This guy got cooked by everybody this year. So, yeah, there were a lot of wonky decisions this year. But you look at the fluctuation, over-surpassing expectations. Then we started losing. We were tied with the Hornets for 4th best odds. And we went on a February month of winning without Cam Thomas, mind you. And then we lost to Washington and Portland, 2 teams who aren't competing for much but have way better young drafted talent than we do, smoked us. And the craziest thing this season was we were a half a game behind the Bulls for a play-in seed, which wasn't even supposed to be in anybody's thoughts. So, yeah, this season went off the rails because this organization, their messaging and goals were not united with everybody. Everybody had different alternative goals, which was, I want to stay in the NBA. I want to get paid. I want to do this. I want to do that. Jordy, I don't want to tank. So, yeah, nobody was united on the singular message was we needed to tank properly, not play the vets as many minutes, rely on the young guys. The fact that we saw a lineup yesterday of, Drew Timme, Keon Johnson, Reese Beekman, Zaire Williams, that lineup should have been out 20, 30 games ago, not with 8 games to go. So, yeah, this organization this year couldn't even lead a season of where you're not supposed to win as much. And they still allowed the coach to have a little autonomy, rely on the vets, and you didn't make a lot of moves like you thought you would. Trading Dennis and Doe for a bag of potato chips and dealer jerseys is not good business. And now you're stuck with the 6th odds. And I keep saying this, we're going to look at some charts in a little bit, but the last 6 years, since they fixed the draft, the odds have been through 6 through 9 for the last 6 years. So unless the NBA front office steps in and grants the Nets a shot at top 3 pick, we're probably picking no less than 6 through 8. And it's crazy to me that our odds are higher at the 7th or 8th pick than it is at a top 4 pick. So if this is what the grand plan was, to not take this seriously and for the draft to be plan B because it's not plan A, I think the front office needs to look in the mirror and realize, should they be the ones running things? Because right now, what I'm seeing, they're not running anything right now.
I want to move. I want to address. Mark asked Dylan a question. I kind of thought this would happen in the offense they're playing in Rutgers. That people might cool on Ace, but I want to get Dylan's take on it. Dylan, Mark wants to know why you're cooling off on Ace.
Yeah, to me, this is a really important pick for Brooklyn, and you want somebody that you can kind of solidify and know that is going to be at least a 3rd option on your team, if not your 1st or 2nd option. To me, Ace has the highest boom or bust in terms of potential and upside. It's a little bit scary how he could either end up like a Michael Porter Jr. at worst, or, potentially a Tracy McGrady. It's kind of too big of a ceiling and floor for me, especially with the 3 names that I've been eyeing in Harper, Flag, and Fears. I think that they just have more upside than Ace does currently. I think Ace by far has the highest potential in terms of ceiling. But again, it's like, do you really want to risk having to develop him for 2-3 years? You kind of see what Brandon Miller's turned into in Charlotte. First season as a rookie, played great. 2nd season injured, dipped in stats left and right. He played solid when LaMelo was out for the first half of the season, but then he ultimately ended up getting hurt. His numbers dropped. To me, it's a bit of a risk that I'm not willing to take. And I also think that next season you have more solidified wings that have higher upside than what Ace has. So to me, this year's draft, you either got to focus on the grand prize, which is Flag, or you have to focus on a guard in Harper or Fears. I think guard is the biggest need, especially if you want to develop Cam Thomas a bit further next season. Whether that be raising his trade value for a star in the 2026 offseason, or keeping him as a solidified 2nd, 3rd option on this team when they're ready to contend. So to me, eye on the prize in Flag, or draft a guard and a center this year, and then next year go for the wing. but you have to bottom out next year. There's really no reason not to.
I want to. Well, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that a little bit later on what the plan would be for next year, free agents, things like that. But John, if we do sit and get the 6th pick, hypothetically, let's say we draft 6, which is the position that we're in now. Who would you look at? And obviously, the big 4 guys, including VJ and Ace, would be gone. Who would you look at? Is it Queen? Is it Maluak? Is it Fears? Who? I know I'm with Dylan. I like Fears. Who would you like if we hypothetically pick 6?
Yeah, those guys would be my top 3 for sure. Fears, Maluak, and Queen. I think with Fears this year, nobody expected him to come out like a lightning rod that he did, but he's shown you he's really a very solid player. He can finish at the rim. He's got good scoring abilities, can pass the ball. He right now is the second best point guard in this draft. And given the point guard is such an area of need, we've gone through so many different point guards this year, having somebody like that as a foundational piece is important for running your offense, for making those clutch plays, for being a closer, just setting everybody else up around them. The point guard is a very important position. Now, saying that, I also look at Derek Queen in his year. He had a great year. His offensive rebounding ratio was phenomenal. He had a game winner recently. Like, he really showed a lot of people that he could potentially be a top 5 breakout prospect. Now, with Maluak, he was very disappointing that game that Duke got eliminated. But for most of the season, he's been a solid defender. He's got a lot of potential there. But do I look at him as better than Fears or Queen? I really can't say that right now, especially because the offense needs to get better. And I think he's probably going to need some more time to develop. But I think Fears right now would definitely be a priority for us if he's available with the 6th pick to get him, because you need a point guard. But I really think that Queen as well, offensively, would be a huge boost to this team. So I'm really focused on those 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if Maluak was chosen, just because we really do need to trade Claxton this summer. That's really like a priority 1. And if you could replace him with Maluak, a 7-footer who is a defensive player who has offensive potential, I think that's a good move as well. But if we're looking for high upside, I think Queen or Fears would be your top 2 choices right there. But I definitely think Fears is making a really serious case for being a front runner right now.
See, just to rebuttal a bit here, I actually think Maluak is the one that has the higher upside. If you look at his game, he's highly efficient when he does get touches. He shot under 10 shots a game at college. He wasn't really a focal point of that offense. And not to mention, he's quite literally a Mark Williams prototype, but can stretch the floor. We saw him shoot the 3 very efficiently throughout college, even though, again, it wasn't on many attempts. To me, the offensive upside and the defensive powerhouse that he is, he's the best defender in this draft class. So when you mix that with the upside that he has offensively, I think that kind of overpowers Queen in terms of upside and potential, simply because we know what Queen is. He's an offensive, power-minded center. He can play make, but he's not really going to be the best defender, nor is he going to be a very good defender. At 6'10", he's probably 6'9", could cause an issue in the NBA in terms of defensive ability. So to me, Maluak is the highest upside prospect next to Ace Bailey, along with Jeremiah Fears. Those are 3 of the 5 youngest players in this year's draft class. So to me, Maluak, the sky's the limit. He could either be, again, it's a high boomer bust, similar to Ace Bailey. He's either going to be an all-star or he's going to be Mark Williams, which if you look at Mark Williams, that's a starting big man in the NBA. So I can't really complain too much with Maluak.
But Queen is a switch big, and he's a closer, and he doesn't need a point guard to do most of his work for him. With Maluak, he definitely does need a guy to help pass him a lot of good lobs. And I think with Queen, what's so great about him is he doesn't need a point guard to necessarily control his offense. So I think with Queen's upside, if he's on a team, he can be a switch big. I think we all agree he's probably better at the 4, but on 5, depending on matchups, we really do need somebody like that. With Day'Ron and Claxton, they're not switch bigs, especially if you try to put Claxton at the 4. It's a nightmare just waiting to happen. So I really like what Queen could bring to us, because you could switch him on a matchup basis, and he really would bulk up the 4 position for us. Now, if that ruins Clowney's starter ability, what have you, but you could also start Clowney with Queen potentially. I agree Maluak has potential, but I think Maluak needs to work on the offensive game more than Queen does at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a debate. To me personally, I think you always have to take the guy who's more raw in terms of talent. Like I said, you kind of know what Queen has to his game. Is he the better offensive player
let me
by
put
far?
back on that real quick, because the reason why you're passing on Ace is you said that he's too raw, right?
Well, I'm talking about in terms of selection of pick. If the Nets land the 4th pick and Ace is there, by all means, take Ace. But if we land 3,
let's say New Orleans drafted 3rd, and they took
Edgecombe,
yeah, and we were drafting 4. You would take Ace at 4?
As long as there's no package out there to move 2 spots back, that doesn't blow you away. Yeah, I'm okay with Ace. like, to me, I still like Ace. I still think he has incredible upside. To me, the only issue that I have with him is the fact that he's so stiff offensively in terms of his ball handling. The playmaking is very lackadaisical. The defensive IQ is not really the highest. Like I said, tons of upside. I mean, in terms of potential player who could take the highest leap in 5-6 years, he probably overtakes Flag simply because you know what you're getting with Flag. You're getting a solidified all-star. With Ace, you don't know for sure just yet. He could become a superstar in this league.
Which is why coming into the season, I liked Ace better than Cooper. Now, if I had to pick, I would take Cooper over Ace at this point after what they've shown through 1 year. But the upside in Ace,
Like to me right now, if you were to give me picks 1 through 6, I'm taking Flag at 1, Harper at 2. I genuinely, I would hope to God we don't get the 3rd overall pick because I genuinely don't want that pick whatsoever. So I'm going to leave that shit blank. 4th, I would take Ace. 5th, I would take Fears. 6th, I would take Maliwak. 7th, I would take Queen. I think that's kind of the order in which I would prioritize the draft.
I'm with John in the sense that I think Queen can be an impactful offensive player.
I agree. I agree
100%. Well too. My issue is defensively, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is he defensively, right? Maliwak is more of a guess what he's going to be offensively. I agree that Maliwak has more upside. But like if I said to you, who's going to have the better rookie season, Queen or Maliwak? You'd probably say Queen, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, though, too, is when you're looking at the long-term picture of what Brooklyn's trying to build, right? To me, I haven't looked at this draft in over 6 months as just this draft. I look at this draft as what do we do next year with this draft, right? So to me, I already have 25 different scenarios of what draft picks could look like this year, off-season, trade deadline, and next year's draft. So to me, when I'm looking at that, my priority is either the top player in Flag, because you compare anybody next to him next year and you'll be all right, or going after the point guard, right? Harper or Fears, you wait next year to fully bottom out and you grab one of those top 4 wings that are available next year in Darren Peterson, Dembélé, Boozer, and Noah Ament. To me, that's the blueprint. But again, things can change. Certain picks can turn out much better than I think. But in terms of how the Jordi Fernandez system works and how you want to build a team in modern day NBA, I think grabbing the 7-footer with the higher upside is a little bit more valuable than the undersized big who has some defensive issues.
I agree. I understand. I've been a big Queen fan the whole time, but I kind of agree. Like, if they took Queen, I'm not going to be upset about it. But if I had my druthers, it was my pick, and I would take Fears. But if Fears was gone,
100%,
and I was taking one of the 2 big men, I would probably take Maliwak.
Because here's the thing with Maliwak too, right? You have Nick Claxton under contract for 3 more years, which it hurts to say, but having Maliwak, you kind of have an understanding that he's the future. And what that allows him to do is, because of how raw of a prospect he is and how young of a prospect he is, that kind of gives you a little bit more development room to where you don't have to plug him in immediately to make an impact. You can play him short minutes, play him in the G League, develop his skills, develop his game, have him run with the development coaching staff. Like, he would be properly developed very, very quickly in Brooklyn because of the coaching staff that we have. So to me, again, if you go for Maliwak, that kind of gives you the space to where, all right, let's bottom out next year. Let's grab a Dembélé. Let's grab a Peterson, whoever that top 4 pick is. Let's let them play half of the season in 2026. And depending on how they do, if they're overachieving, you got Nick Claxton now on a 2-year deal that you can put as your key piece in terms of price matching for a star.
And I both of your. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say. I mean, if you're telling me a Darren Peterson, Maliwak, Cam Thomas, young trio in which you say you move Thomas and Claxton for a superstar, now you got a Peterson, say Giannis and come on Maliwak as your potential big 3 moving forward. I mean, it's interesting. There's different routes that you can take, whether it be going for a star guard, star forward. But I mean, if you get Maliwak, you're thinking either wing or point guard as your top pick in 2026, and then trading for the vice versa position, depending on that draft pick. So to me, there's different avenues that you can take with this that'll be successful by that 2027 season, which is kind of where I've been aiming to get back into that playoff play-in contention picture, especially not owning our own pick outright. So it'll be interesting to see. But I agree. Queen has the higher upside in terms of an offensive player, but it's that defensive offensive combination that Maliwak has. You already know he's the best defensive player in this draft. He'll likely be a top 5 defensive big man if he stays healthy within the next 3 to 5 years, right? It's that offensive upside as a potential stretch 5. You see how dominant Mark Williams is when he's healthy. If you're telling me that we're going to be drafting Mark Williams with slightly better defense and able to stretch the floor, I think that's a home run of a pick, especially over Queen. So I wouldn't be mad at any of the 3.
I want to come back to that, right? And I want to ask a question. I'm going to go to John first. I want your take on it too. Look, I think Claxton's here. I don't think you're moving off his contract. It's going to be very tough, and I think Marks likes to be right. So unless Marks is fired, I think Claxton's going to be here. Whatever that means, for better or for worse, I think Claxton's going to be here unless Marks gets fired. Then whoever comes in will try to fire sale him. But could either one of these guys work with Claxton? I think you could argue you could work either of them with Claxton, but could you play either Queen or Maliwak with Claxton?
I definitely think you could.
This is very interesting questions. I'm glad you brought it up. I think Fears would definitely help Claxton because Fears can throw lobs to him, and like we keep saying, a point guard is kind of what helps elevate Claxton's game, a sound point guard. And we've had a lot of aging point guards like the Dinwiddie's and D'Lo, so don't really work with Claxton. I know Claxton has some good numbers with D'Lo, but still, you want to get a younger point guard that has way more impact, like a Fears could. So I think he could work with Claxton. This is where it is very interesting with Derek Queen. I think you could play him and Claxton on the court together. Queen at the 4, Claxton at the 5. Claxton's defense should be what helps take away the limitations that Queen has, and Queen offensively takes away the limitations Claxton has. That is a good complementary duo right there, potentially. Now, if you get Common Maliwak, like Dylan said, you play him off the bench or you develop him, I feel like that's a waste of a move for us. Because if you're stuck with Claxton's contract, you can't play him on the court together. You have to play him separately. I don't think that makes us better in the near term. Whereas with Queen, if you play him with Claxton, I think you get bigger as far as rebounding goes, which has been an issue for us for many years now. And I think they kind of helps the two balance each other out. We need to start thinking about roster balance. I think we have so many inconsistencies the last few years that maybe having a Queen and Claxton combo could be what helps both of them work well in the court together. Or as you have Fears as the point guard to help Claxton as well. I think Fears of Queen would complement Claxton and help elevate his skills that have been really, really bad this whole season. So
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Like, we know that Claxton struggles guarding bigs, big, powerful bigs, right? Like, he gets his lunch eaten by every big. Like, Jalen Duran will go for 30 and 20 off them. Can Queen help with that, or is Queen too small to guard those bigs?
No, I think having 2 bigs on the court is an advantage. Some teams are getting back to having 2 bigs on the court, and I think the problem with organizations, they believe small ball is the way to go because you want runners. But if Claxton by himself, you've seen it, Gary. The guy's gotten demolished by old centers and young centers. Whereas if you have 2 bigs on the court, I think that helps the rebounding get better, and it helps you double the matchup as opposed to having one big like Claxton get crushed by Nikola or a center that's way bigger than him like a Zubats. Like having 2 bigs on the court, I think would definitely help take on the opposing center on a night-to-night basis. So you have to look out for both of them. They're both going to be battling for those rebounds, right? And having 2 bigs, I think, is a better advantage than just having 1 big. I think that philosophy change really needs to happen with the Nets. And if they actually draft a 7-footer with their lottery pick, or they draft a Derek Queen and draft a center later in this draft, because there are some good center options too. There's a Maxine Renard who's a 7-footer in this draft. Like, if the Nets can get a big center and maybe pair that with a Derek Queen, or you pair that with a Claxton from a forward position with a bigger, I think that makes you a lot stronger as a team as opposed to just having 1 big on the court like Claxton, like you said, get his lunch handed to him. So I think the Nets really need to look in the mirror and be like, is 1 big on the court really what we need to go forward as a team? Or maybe it's time to start experimenting, have 2 bigs on the court and see what happens. That's why I think Queen would be a good complement with Claxton as opposed to going for Maliwak where there's 2 centers. You can't play them both on the court together.
Dylan, I want to bring this to you. Does one of the bigs work better than the other with Claxton? Let's assume Claxton is going to be here for the foreseeable future. Would you prefer one with Claxton than the other, and does that work?
I mean, it's kind of tough because yes, I agree that both could work, but I also disagree that both could potentially not work. Right? When you look at both of their games next to Claxton, right? You're putting Maliwak next to Claxton. Okay, what are you doing with him? Are you putting him at the 4 or are you putting him at the 5? Claxton can't shoot the ball like a 4. Malawak has the upside to potentially shoot the ball like a 4, but at the same time, Malawak's 7'2" and can rebound better than Claxton, can rim protect better than Claxton. It kind of contradicts what you want out of both of them. And then with Queen, undersized big man that can offensively be a little bit more gifted, but can he guard the 4 the way that Claxton could guard the 4? Can he defensively keep up with his matchups the way that Claxton can keep up with his matchups? So to me, it's a little difficult. If you put Queen next to Claxton, you're kind of forcing him to space the floor and put him in a limited role rather than allowing him to dominate inside the paint, play make inside the paint, which is kind of where he flourished in college. So it's a bit difficult to kind of pair 2 centers next to each other. It's very, very rare to do so. The only teams that have really been able to do it and make it work is OKC with Hartenstein and Chet, and then Cleveland with Mobley and Jared Allen. So it's going to be a bit difficult. I think if I had to pick one, I think Queen's a bit of a better fit next to Claxton just because he has that floor spacing offensive ability that Claxton doesn't. But again, my biggest concerns would be you now have 2 undersized big men who, defensively Claxton can't guard a 5, but defensively Queen can't really guard much either. So I think it kind of contradicts itself. To me, if you draft a big man with your first top pick, you need to move off of Claxton to allow that player to fully flourish. But again, that's kind of why I'm aiming more so with, again, in order, I would take Flag, Harper, Fears, and then Ace. And then Malawak, then Queen. So to me, if you get one of the first 3 that I mentioned, you should be doing your due diligence and making sure that you select Thomas Sorber. To me, Thomas Sorber actually has a bit more upside than Derek Queen, simply because similar size, similar weight, similar offensive ability, but much better defensively. I think he's the total package when you're looking at a Queen and Sorber comparison. Sorber just has the defensive presence down low as a rim protector, as an on-ball defender that Queen kind of doesn't have. So to me, if you can get him around 16 through 19, that's got to be your pick, especially if you go point guard in the first with your first pick.
I wanted to ask you this about and Quest brought this up. I think it was Quest. Yeah, Quest. Ace is has worse shot selection than CT. His shot selection is questionable at best.
Yeah, I would agree.
How much does that hurt him? Is he going to be viewed as a low IQ player, or is it kind of like me? Like, look, he's 18. He's going to take bad shots. They'll coach him out of that. What are your thoughts on his shot selection?
Just go watch previous high caliber offensive players in their college days. You're looking at the 17, 18-year-old as if they're supposed to be a 27-year-old, 8-year veteran in the NBA. Kids are going to have weaknesses to their games. That's the entire reason why they are drafted young, to develop those weaknesses and progress as a player to hit the upside that teams feel that they have. So if shot selection is your biggest worry with him, honestly, that's not too bad. To me, his shot selection is actually pretty solid. I think that, yes, he does take some weird shots here and there, but he's also 6'10", so he can hit those.
Let me ask you about this, and I want to bring John in on the same question.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily the shot selection. It's a lot of times you'll see him like dribble into the help, dribble into the double team. It seems like he makes life more difficult for himself.
Look at Kevin Durant. Look at Kevin Durant, right? He has about 6 places on the floor that it doesn't matter if there is nobody there or 3 people there. He's going to shoot the shot. Why? Because that's where he's comfortable shooting. That's his spot. I think Ace is very similar in that sense, where he has certain spots on the floor that he's comfortable with, even if there is a guy or 2 right there. Again, he's 6'10", right? The elevation and athleticism that he has to his game, he can shoot over defenders. So to me, I don't think they're bad shot selections. Do I think that he needs to kind of get a bit more comfortable with catch and shoot scenarios rather than just simply putting the ball on the floor to try and create his own shot? Yes. But at the end of the day, I think that he has specific spots on the floor similar to Kevin Durant, right? You see KD at the wing on the right side at the 3-point line. You already know he's taking one dribble between the legs, crossover left, and taking one dribble with his left hand to pull up from the elbow. That's his patented shot. You already know when he gets the ball and he's driving down the right side of the wing, he's going to take a fadeaway shot from the baseline, right? There are certain spots on the floor that KD has that he hits 9 times out of 10. And I think that's kind of what Ace is getting comfortable with as well, just finding his spots and where he's comfortable. So to me, the shot selection is not really the issue. It's more so the stiffness as a ball handler. He's very straight up as a dribbler. I think he needs to get a bit more comfortable and loose as a ball handler. And then his defensive IQ, he kind of gets lost at times defensively. So those are my two biggest, takeaways in what Ace can improve on once he gets to the NBA.
John, I was really high on Ace, really, really high on Ace. I don't want to say I've cooled on him, but I would take the other two guys over him now. And maybe that's a mistake, right? Maybe I'm getting too emotional, too responsive. But what are your thoughts on Ace and his shot selection? Quest brings up a fair point. It's going to be a fair criticism, right? It's going to be, on his scouting report, his weaknesses is going to be a shot selection, right? So what are your thoughts on what Quest objection? Quest question.
Yeah, great question. Shout out to you, Quest. One great question. Definitely, guys, hit the like buttons. There's definitely some good discussions being had here. Yeah, listen, I think what's so interesting when we started talking about this last summer, I was day one Cooper Flag guy just because I saw the hybrid potential that he has, the offense and defense. Everybody was like, Ace, Tracy McGrady, Kevin Durant, this is going to be the steal of the draft. And I was like, I don't know. Listen, the shot selection looks very interesting, but his other skill sets don't seem like they're where they should be right now. And I think that was proven right during this college season. I think you look at it, Dylan Harper, that guy just took off. As soon as Ace was injured to start the season, Harper just took off. And for most of the season, offensively was dominating until he got hurt towards the end. Whereas with Ace, he had some games where he looked really locked in. Other games where just the shot selection looked very questionable, physicality-wise, defense. Like, he has all the tools potentially. It's just – I feel like he was stuck with a bad Rutgers coaching staff. It was really bad coaching staff. The players around weren't that good besides Harper. So, yeah, there were a lot of deficits that Ace had to adapt to, and it seemed like he wasn't really adapting as well as he probably had hoped to. And I think you look at it right now, whereas Harper really did make a strong case where everybody's looking at Harper as a 3 guy going into this. Now he's number 2. He really is undisputed number 2. Now is with Ace, he could be 3. Some people think potentially 4 or even lower because they are not as impressed because they've had high expectations for him. I still think Ace has all the potential in the world. I think for him, when he gets on a team, physicality, he needs to be on a weight management program. Once he gets stronger physically and makes his offense way more unpredictable, you're really going to see the full potential of what Ace Bailey can possess. So I think for him right now, you're right to cool off a little bit because he still has a ways to go. But definitely he does have a long future in the NBA. It just depends on who drafts him and who can get all those skill sets out of him. I think will be a huge thing to monitor these next 2 years for him in the NBA. But yeah, I think right now it's fair to warrant that he definitely isn't the top 1, and Harper definitely surpassed him as a top 2. But I think 3 is a fair bar for him right now, and whoever gets him, you're going to have a fun, long developmental project because he does have these flashes of Kevin Durant in him. It's just, can he find the right coaching staff to unlock the full 5 tool potential player in him? I think that'll be something very interesting to see as he progresses his first and second years in the NBA.
I wanted to bring this question also. Mark Brothers, Keon Johnson proving he's an NBA player, Gary. Am I missing something? John, do you see? I had this with him on Twitter yesterday. What am I missing? He's not an NBA player. He's not an NBA shooter. He doesn't have an NBA offensive bag. Look, if you want to have him as the last guy on your roster who can chase around, a score in defense, okay, fine. Am I missing something in the development here of Keon Johnson? Am I being a hater, John?
You know what was funny when you said that he's played 78 games, so he's improved 78%. Remember what Jordy says, 1% better? I think that was such a great thing. He said, listen, I think with Keon Johnson, yes, he's had 10 or 11 games where he dropped 20 points. He's also had 15, 20, maybe 30 games where where he overshot, like maybe made 20, 23 shots and only made 6 of them. Anybody remember that game where him and this other guy, I think Johnson, were combined 6 for like 30 shots? He's missed a lot this year at the same time. I think you've seen 2 types of Keon Johnson. See the Keon Johnson that's fighting for his life and wants to work so hard, but he takes a lot of unnecessary shots instead of being that team player guy finding his shots. Then he has some games where he looks very efficient. He's dunking at the rim, right? He's got the vertical. But I think you look at what he really is. He gives you defensive effort on a daily basis. I think a Gary Payton the second comp might be a little agropos for what Keon's trying to give you right now. But I don't see a huge starting piece potential in him ever. Bench piece maybe if you want to bring it back next year. But most likely, if he was on a contending team right now, he's probably a third stringer at best, Gary. I think you agree on that. So yeah, I'm not gonna give Keon Johnson all this hype because he played decent this year. We still have the draft. We have free agency. So his role on this team is not set in stone by any means. You got to see what happens by the time we get around free agency to see if there's still a role for Keon Johnson as far as our team goes. But yeah, he might have extended his career in the NBA, but I don't see a full-fledged huge piece right now for us, especially when we do become a legit team again in the future right now.
Dylan, I want to ask you the same question. Am I being a Keon Johnson hater when I say he absolutely sucks? Am I being a hater here, or do you see what Mark is seeing him developing into an NBA rotational player?
He's like an 8th or 9th man at best. Like it's really there's nothing. I mean, think about it. Come playoff time, and even in the regular season, you're only running a 9-10 man rotation. That may be your last guy coming in. Like there's nothing special about him. He's mediocre in all aspects of the game. But again, this is also a problem that many Nets fans have with, teams that aren't contending. They get so attached to some of these mediocre players, which is why I'm glad half of these people don't run an NBA franchise, because we'd be stuck with a bunch of Keon Johnsons for the rest of our lives. But it's just, to me, cool player, cool tattoos. I like that he wears a headband. But other than that, I don't give a shit. If he's gone next year, I don't care. It does not hurt my feelings. I don't lose sleep over it. There's maybe 1 or 2 guys on this team that I wouldn't want to go next season. Outside of that, every person's replaceable. So, no, I don't see him as a key rotational piece on a contender. He could be a cool rotational piece on a rebuilding team for the rest of his career. That's probably what his ceiling is. So, I don't disagree with you on that, Gary. I don't see a solidified NBA rotational piece in Keon Johnson.
Good comment, Tyrell Davis. He just said he sees him as a 9 of 15 guy in a roster. Tyrell Davis, that's kind of what I was alluding to. So really good comment, Tyrell.
I see him as Dennis Rodman if Dennis Rodman couldn't rebound. I don't see anything that he adds, right? Like, yes, he can chase around guys defensively. I give him that. He can hound you defensively. Good. So if you want him as the last guy on your roster, he can be the last guy on your roster.
Have him be your Jose Alvarado.
Yeah.
Come in to be a defensive pest, and chuck up some shots and hope they fall. Keep him during the rebuild. Keep him during the rebuild.
Yeah, fine. Like, I just feel like I'd rather play Etienne at this point than play Keon Johnson. Like, at least I don't know what I have in Etienne. He's played a handful of minutes. I know what I have in Keon Johnson. I know I don't value it.
Is it Etienne or is it Etienne? Is he related to the Jaguars running back?
John, you're the pronunciation guy. Is it Etienne?
Because I know.
I think it's Etienne. I think it's Etienne. I believe it's Etienne. Like, I take up the word antenna, you remove the A and you put an E. Etienne.
Because I know the Jaguars running back is Travis Etienne, and it's spelled the same exact way. So I didn't know if they were related or how the enunciation works on it. But
there's another brother that plays for Florida, the running back on Florida.
Is it Florida or Georgia? I think he's on Georgia.
Georgia, yeah. Okay. You're right.
Yeah, because he's going in the draft this year or next year. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Etienne. I don't know. Look up if they're related somebody, because now I'm overthinking. It
all starts with T, so I'm thinking Trevor, Travis, and Tyson. So let me see if they're related.
You'd have to think they're related, right?
Wait, that's some interesting names.
5'10". This guy's like, let me see, Trevor, Tyson, Etienne.
We got Etienne, and then we got Uwuma.
Yeah, look up. Is Tyson Etienne related to Travis?
He's related
Etienne?
to Marcus Camby, but it doesn't say anything. No, they're not.
Oh, that's funny. Interesting. So maybe it is pronouncing it.
Emmy-nominated makeup artist, and his dad played college basketball at Maryland. I think I remember his dad. Hang on. Was his dad? Yeah, there's no relation, which is interesting. No relation to the.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but you're not overreacting, Gary. I think Keon, he was fighting very hard for a contract this year. I don't fall from the effort. I think was great if he's talking about effort. But I think if you're looking at what a player's supposed to do, I feel like a lot of times he was being a ball hog just because he wants to get a contract so badly. To me, that's not good building habits. Then he finally started having some games where it's like, okay, now he's being smarter with his shot selection. But I think it was too much of a mixed bag for me to be like, okay, Keon, I see you as a serious piece. I really don't right now, and I hope we draft well this summer so it makes those decisions on who to give those last roster spots to a lot easier. And if Keon doesn't get it, it's not because he thinks he's a bad player. It's just we don't think you're a long-term piece. And that's fair evaluation on your part, Gary. You're not being a hater at all with that.
If you don't mind, can you
yeah.
pin Ken Young's comment real quick? Who do you think's better between Kasparis and Fears? I've
I'm
been
all
I've been kind of keeping up with a lot of these mock drafts and some of the risers in the class. To me, Kasparis is falling heavily. Like, this was a guy who was projected top 5. I don't see him going top 9. I could see him going in that 10 through 12 range, potentially even falling to a team like Houston, whether they pick at 13 or 14. To me, Fears is by far the better prospect. It's not even close. I think it is Harper and Fears in a class of their own, Harper being the better prospect, and then it drops significantly. There's a lot of mock drafts and draft analysis that shows Jace Richardson being a potential higher prospect than Kasparis Yakachonis. So it'll be interesting to see who values him. I could see a team like the Raptors, depending on if they pick between like 7 through 10. Maybe they're the team that takes a shot on Yakachonis. But to me, I kind of have him fitting right now with Atlanta and Houston with that 13 and 14 pick range. But again, it just depends on what a team wants, if they feel he's a fit, and depending on what the upside is of him. But as of right now, my point guard rankings are probably Harper, Fears, Richardson, Yakachonis, Igor, and then Nolan Traore. That would be my top 6 in terms of point guards.
John, you want to you have any?
Yeah, I
Thoughts
never
on
really had Kasparis as a high option for me. I'm not sure why he was in the top 5. I think people saw the physicality that he brings, but he's also seems like his skill set isn't really polished like some people thought it would be, and I think that's why he's kind of dropped a lot. You have guys like Fears rising up, Jace Richardson. I've heard about him too. He's rising up. So yeah, I could see Kasparis around that 11 through 14 even potentially bracket. And honestly, I know you had Nolan Traore as your last option. I think Boogie Flan for me would be over Nolan, just because I think Boogie Flan, he's got the speed, he's got moxie. I think that would be an exciting prospect for us if we don't get a top prospect with our lottery pick. So that's the only way I would switch there at the end there. But yeah, I think that's a fine order. And I think if you get Fears, Fears is definitely the second best point guard for us. The upside is really there. I think with Kasparis, there's nothing about him that's like, wow, this guy is really going to be a steal for a team right now. Whereas with Fears, he's really opening up a lot of eyes. So I hope that answered your
I
question.
can't really say Yakachonis played poorly. I mean, if you look at his stats, he averaged 15, 5, and 5 roughly. Those are pretty solid numbers for a 6'6" point guard as a freshman. So the numbers don't look bad, but if you look at his conference play and if you look at his March Madness, the inefficiencies to his game and the IQ to his game looked very low. The turnover ratio was horrible. The night that he almost had the triple-double, he had, I think, 7 or 8 turnovers as well. So to me, the playmaking aspect of his game is a bit unpolished. And the offensive ability in terms of the score is a bit inconsistent. So that's kind of why I've had him drop off a bit. But I also saw another comment saying Igor may be going back. I said this months ago and I was called crazy, especially when he started to drop off in terms of production as a scorer. So to me, I think it would be incredibly smart for him to go back to college for one more year to play with DeBansta at BYU. That would be a very fun team to watch, especially knowing that next year's draft class isn't as deep. The top 8 is probably better than this year's top 8, but especially the top 4. But in terms of end of lottery and mid to early 20s in the first round, Igor could definitely raise his stock a bit playing next to DeBansta. So I wouldn't disagree nor say it's out of the realm that he could go back to BYU next year. I actually think it would play in his favor to do an extra year to kind of solidify his offensive ability and make it a bit more consistent.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Wanted to give you a shout out. I totally forgot that Etienne transferred to Georgia. He played his first 2 years at Florida, and then
Okay. Yeah,
I
so we were
totally
both right.
forgot that. Yeah, no, you were right. When he gets drafted, he'll be drafted out of Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot that he played for Georgia. So I remember just tying to the Gators. Losing my brain here. I wonder because we're talking about Etienne and we're talking about the rebuild. 2 guys that kind of stand out that I want. Reese Beekman had a career day as a pro. As much as I dislike Keon Johnson, I think Reese Beekman is 10 times worse. I don't understand why he's on an NBA roster. At least Keon Johnson gives me athleticism and defense. I have no idea what Reese Beekman gives you. He had a career day yesterday. He scored 13 points. I'll get the total box score. But my question, I'll start with you because you were the one, Dylan, that was calling for Killian Hayes to be on here. why is Reese Beekman playing, and why is Killian Hayes not up here at this point? So Reese Beekman was 6 for 13, 0 for 4 from 3, 14 points. And his career game, he was a minus 26, just to put that out there. But your thoughts on Beekman is why is he up here and Killian Hayes not?
I could not answer that for you. It's Sean Marks. You expect something so simple in terms of an answer, and you get the opposite. So it doesn't even surprise me. But I definitely agree. Hayes should be the player that's up rather than Beekman.
What do they see? Okay, if I was scouting him, I said, here's why we have to give him a shot. What does he do that says, all right, we need to give this guy some burn?
Nothing.
I
I don't see it.
John, you want to go ahead? You want to?
No. I mean, I'm at a loss of words. There's really nothing I can say. That guy is worse than Keon Johnson in terms of an NBA player. So I was big on Hayes, and you knew that. I was vouching for him for months. I was very disappointed to see him get released because I think he's a similar upside talent in terms of a guy like Zaire Williams, who were both lottery picks, both weren't used properly, both weren't developing properly in their drafted teams. I saw upside in Hayes similar to Zaire that definitely could have been a long-term rotational piece, but we'll see if they do it next year. I mean, we got him back on our G League team, so we'll see, but I don't know.
John, your thoughts on Reese Beekman? Am I missing something here? Mark, do you want to defend Reese Beekman too? I know you're going to defend Keon.
Oh, no, please.
You want to defend Reese Beekman? I don't get this at all. I don't see any NBA quality in this guy at all.
You know what? I never thought I would meet a better tank commander in my life till I met Reese Beekman. Cuckoo! Like, seriously, man, if we would have played this guy for like 50, 60 games this year, Cooper, Ace, Hopper would be in the bank account right now. Like, I would have no worries in the world because this guy perfectly represents what you're supposed to do this season. Super low impact, gives you all the energy in the world, but it doesn't lead to hurting your odds whatsoever freaking ever. But unfortunately, we played him so minimally that you see performances like this, it's like, damn, it's like pulling teeth with this kid. But yeah, I agree. Killian Hayes should have been called up here months ago. He would have been the perfect backup or starter for this team because he fits the timeline. Offense, he doesn't do a lot, but he passes the ball a lot pretty well. Like, he is a way better player for this rebuild than D'Lo was. This D'Lo move is still a wonky move that makes no sense whatsoever freaking ever. And because they couldn't sign Hayes to a standard deal, he got sent to the G League. I think he hurt his ankle. That's why he's not playing right now, Gary. I think he's dealing with an injury, which is unfortunate. But it's like Hayes should have been the one in D'Lo's spot right now this year. And because he wasn't, we were 8-9 with D'Lo, which now puts us, Gary, at the 6th odds. Not playing Killian Hayes, Gary. Not playing Killian Hayes actually could potentially screw our lottery odds. How crazy is that? Considering he's not an impactful player, but he would have impacted your draft odds potentially. So yeah, it was a foolish move on Sean Marks' part, and this D'Lo move, if it backfires on us, it's one of the main reasons why we're selecting not top 3 by May 12th. So yeah, it was a foolish decision. It's just unfortunate because if Reese Beekman was even playing more games, our draft odds would probably be in a better position they are right now, and the same goes for Killian Hayes.
Ken Young's comment: we needed to start a backcourt of Reese Beekman and Keon Johnson. If we did that, the tank would have been a lot different had we started that. Mm-hmm. The next thing, and I got to take a leak real quick. The next thing I want to get into is obviously the Great White Hype, the Great White Hope. Drew Timme, man, I see. I got to take a leak, but you guys, give me your thoughts. Then we can start with you. Give me your thoughts on Timme. Go to John. You feel the same question, and I have a question for you. I want your take on, but guys, give me your preliminary take so far on the little bit of sample size we have seen from Drew Timme.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be very honest. I really haven't been watching games lately. I've been fully invested in March Madness and Yankees coming back. So I really haven't watched in the last 2-3 weeks. I'll turn on the game maybe for the first quarter or the fourth quarter, but to me, Timmy's a guy that is very solid and polished, but again, nothing special, doesn't scream, key rotational piece long term. He has a team option this year because they gave him a fully guaranteed contract for the remainder of the season and into next year, but it does have a team option, so they can opt out. And I do think they will opt out of that. He's set to make $2.1 million, I believe, next year. I don't think they're going to want that eating away at their cap space and a roster spot. So to me, he probably gets declined for his team option and probably comes back on a 2-way deal. I think it's best just because of the simple fact that you already have potentially 4 to 5 drafted players coming in. And I already did a mock off season on this. If you bring back Cam Thomas, Sharp, and Zaire Williams, plus draft 4 rookies, you'd only have 2-3 roster spots available, depending on if you decline the options of Jalen Wilson and Drew Timme. You would only have 2 available roster spots. So to me, the Nets are probably going to go that route in which they decline the options of Jalen Wilson and Drew Timme. Wilson, I think, will go elsewhere. Timme will come back on a 2-way deal, and they'll fill those 2 roster spots accordingly. So that's kind of my take on it. I don't see him being here much longer in terms of on the Brooklyn Nets roster, but in Long Island, I could see him staying there for a little bit and coming up next season when injuries occur or if there's trades where a roster spot opens up. So we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, listen, Drew Timme, gimme the ball. Listen, Timmy's been a fun, exciting young guy. I know he's spoken a lot about wanting to come up here. I wish he could have gotten up here like 20, 30 games ago, because it would have been fun to see what he could actually do. Having come back like 8 to 10 games ago, like you said, there's a chance his option gets denied. He can come back on another 2-way, something like that. I think what Timmy's giving you is energy. He's giving you effort. He had a potential game winner the other night that led to a win against Washington. He's making some threes. He had this weird falling assist pass for a 3 the other day. Like, Timmy's definitely endearing himself to Brooklyn fans because he's really trying out there and he wants a spot on this team. Now, will he be a part of this long-term future? I don't see it right now. Could he be maybe a backup? I think what's interesting about Timmy's spot is you look at Day'Ron, what's going to happen with him this summer. If you draft another big in this draft, and you keep Timme, there's really not a lot of room left for Day'Ron to really get the adequate minutes to show what he can do. So if they keep Timme, I feel like that kind of insinuates that Day'Ron's time likely could be up with the Nets this summer, especially if they draft another big. So I want to see more what Timme can do, especially next year if our goal still is to tank for another year, just to see what more he can grow his game on this team. This guy obviously wants to be here and show us what he can do. So I look forward to seeing what Timme can do if he comes back next year, because he clearly wants to give effort and be a little spark plug off the bench for this team. So hopefully he continues the effort and tries to keep earning his time on the court.
Let me bring, this is the question I wanted to raise. I'm assuming we're going to draft a big, although I don't know what Marks is going to do. A rotation of, here's my question. Would you be okay with letting Day'Ron Sharpe go and letting those minutes go to Drew Timme next year, John?
I'm open to it. Listen, I feel bad for Day'Ron because he's not getting the adequate minutes. If he gets re-signed just to play 15, 60 minutes a night and he's playing better than Claxton, I don't see how that helps Day'Ron's growth if he's going to be nothing more than a backup. So I feel like if the goal is to get off of Day'Ron this year, sign and trading him for maybe some second-round picks. If that's the best you can get for Day'Ron, take it. Every pick you get right now is an advantage towards your future. So if that's what it leads to and you keep Timme as a consolation prize, I'm totally fine for it. I just feel right now Day'Ron's not going to get the adequate minutes, especially if you're drafting another big. So I'd definitely be open to seeing more of what Timme can do if we do move off of Day'Ron this summer. I think the Nets really have to address the center position, like you said, Gary. You don't want to have $35, $37 million committed to a center duo that really can't play consistent basketball and give you multifaceted skill sets on different nights. So at least with Timme, he's showing you a bit of different things. He's not afraid to shoot the 3. That's great. Check mark. He can make shots at the rim. Check mark. His defense is effort. He gives you effort. I like that. So unfortunately, just with Day'Ron, it seems like there are a lot of things going against him right now. And strategically, if there isn't a future with Day'Ron, sign and trade for some assets, keep Timme, draft a big, and maybe find a way to get off of Claxton's contract. Then I think the center position's in a better spot going into the following year. But we'll see. There's a lot of work to be done at that side of the Nets right now.
Dylan, let me bring this to you. Well, I got one last question for John. If we could get rid of Nick Claxton for whatever, a bag of football. I don't care. Just get his contract off the books at this point. A second and a bag of football. Like I'll do it right now.
Man, you're generous.
With a rotational center, let's say Sorber or whatever center they pick at 17, Timme and Day'Ron Sharpe, will you be okay with using that as your trio of bigs for next season?
Most definitely, and I think with the Bucks pick, Thomas Sorber makes so much sense. If we get Jeremiah Fears with our lottery pick, and then you get Sorber with the 17th pick, that is a great draft. Now you got your big of the future in Sorber, who's a very solid rebounder, and he has an offensive game. He has a midi too. Some people say a young Bam Adebayo. I want to see more of what that potential could be. So if you get Sorber and Fears with your first 2 picks, great starts to the night. And then you re-sign Dayron on the cheap, and you have Sorba, Dayron, and Timmy. I think that's a great young rotation going to next year. And I think you're going to see a lot of effort from that trio, and you're going to see a good fight on a night-to-night basis and growth at that position, especially if you could trade Claxton for whatever you can get from, let's say, the Lakers this summer. I think that would be a great way for the Nets to navigate the center position this year. So, yeah, drafting Sorba, re-signing Dayron, keep it Timmy. I think that's a win-win-win for the Nets. It's just, can Sean Marks be strategic enough to pull it off? Find out this summer.
Let me bring this back to Dylan. Dylan, the money, Sharp's not going to make a ton of money, but he's going to make something. Would you be comfortable bringing back Timmy and giving him the minutes as like the second or third center, depending on what you do in the draft? Would you be comfortable giving Timmy those minutes next year and not bringing back Sharp?
I still personally think the best route Brooklyn should take is bringing back Sharp, letting go of Timmy, and drafting Sorber. If you can do that, that puts you in position where you can move off of Claxton, whether it be at the deadline, next year's draft, or, say you land a top 4 pick next year, you can then package Claxton for a star, right? If you can put a star next to a top 4 pick next year and a top 6 pick this year, along with the rest of the draft capital and picks that we have this year, I think that's definitely the much better route to take. I think letting go of a guy like Sharp for nothing is very stupid,
it's not good.
to put it simplistic, right? I don't think it's smart whatsoever. You could have moved him for seconds at the deadline if you really wanted to. To me, that kind of shows that he will be coming back. And I think it's going to be similar to what Claxton did his first round of free agency after his rookie contract, which was signing a 2-year deal. Very simple, very cheap. I got him projected at $9.5 million a year. So I think that's something, and especially if you can lock down a backup big for that price range, it kind of allows you to test out different big men lineup where you can have a Clowney next to a Claxton, or you can have a Sorber next to a Clowney and a Sharp next to a Sorber, or a Sharp next to a Clowney. So I think the versatility in the big men department is definitely something that they need to invest in, simply because we haven't had many teams where you have multiple big men on it that can produce minutes. So to me, you kind of want to have a little bit of wiggle room in the big man room that they can potentially create this offseason, because ultimately I do think Claxton's the guy that's going to get it done to get a star in the near future. So to me, you kind of have to draft that big man and also keep the current one that you have. So this way, when you are ready to move on from Claxton, you still have a big man room that can produce at a starting caliber level.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're all 3 of us are on board with Fears and Sorber, and I think we would all agree if Fears and Sorber, that's what we ended with, right? We got Fears and Sorber at 6 and 17, let's say. We'd all be happy with. Now, it wasn't.
I'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, it's not what we envisioned, getting a franchise-changing player like Cooper Flag, but okay, we're happy with that.
Yeah.
All of us are, which means if it's available to us, Mark certainly won't do it because
exactly.
Yeah, there's a nightmare scenario. Gary. Thank you for the sober reality. We don't even have booze in our hands. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, he'll draft he'll draft Trey Johnson in the first with our first.
He'll draft Liam McNeely. He'll draft Liam McNeely.
And then he'll draft
Liam such
McNeely
a good prospect.
Yeah.
Like, come on. But yeah, Gary, like you said, the best way to navigate having the 6 odds, but statistically it looks like that's where we're going to draw unless the NBA does something about it. But yeah, if you could get Fears and Sorber with your lottery and Bucks pick, there you go. 2 areas of need. And guess what? We still got the Knicks, the Rockets, and the second round pick to work with. So you would have a lot to work with there if you get Sorber and Fears with your first 2 picks. Now, if Marks can actually navigate that scenario, he has a night to actually put on a masterclass. If not, I don't know what you're going to do with the 6 odds at that point, because not getting out of those 2 guys and getting Maliwalk and then getting some prospects that aren't going to be huge defining pieces, I think that's a waste of the draft night. So it'll be interesting to see what he actually does with that lottery pick and the Bucks pick. By the way, the Bucks pick, how great is that value looking for us? Given the fact that everybody said, oh, we're not going to get any type of pick under 20 from that Knicks package. Yeah, well, we got the Bucks pick value going there. So it'll be interesting to see what that actually turns into on draft night, because it's looking like a pot of gold pick potentially for us.
Mark wants to know how we feel about development of Whitehead over the last few games. I mean, he's a shooter a little bit. If he can become a knockdown shooter, he can have a role in this league. If not, it's gonna be a tough road ahead for him. John, Dylan, what are you guys' thoughts on what we've seen out of Whitehead the last few games?
I don't understand the hate. This is a guy that still has upside.
I agree.
To me, the hate is very, very unwarranted. You have a guy that had 2 surgeries in 10 months who's coming back to form. His athleticism looks better. His 3-ball looks better. His mechanics look better. His, creation in terms of a ball handler has looked better. Defensively, he really hasn't lost a step. I don't see where the hate's coming from. I think that he could be a very solid. I think I can see him in like a Keon Johnson role next year where he is that like 8th, 9th man. Play him minutes, get him to develop. Because the thing is, too, is you have him for 2 more seasons after this. Next year's kind of a make or break for him. If he doesn't provide any, key minutes, he's the guy that you throw in a deal with Claxton and somebody else for a star, right? So to me, you got to play him next year. You have to see what he can do. If he starts to improve, guess what? You may have a really good long-term rotational piece. If not, well, he still has some upside. Maybe it's just not being found in Brooklyn. Changing scenery sometimes help. Send him somewhere else in a package for a star when the 2026 offseason comes. So I think you have to keep your options open in terms of the players that you put on the roster for next season, simply because the guys that you have next season are going to be the key pieces in a trade the following offseason if and when you do go for a star. So putting guys that have upside, that have good contracts, I think that's going to be the key piece in what Brooklyn needs to do moving forward.
John, same question to you. Your thoughts, Whitehead, the last few games. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, listen, I think the 3-point shot has been the best thing he's done in the minutes he's gotten this year. I think you could definitely see him in the 3-point contest next year if he's still on this team. But it's what he can do in the interior. I know he made 1 basket in the interior yesterday. That looked good. I think for him, trusting his legs, I don't think he trusts his legs yet to fully do that interior game that got him, such recognition. So until he gets that figured out, I don't know if he's a long-term part of our future. Now, I will say this upcoming training camp this summer is crucial for Dariq Whitehead. He needs to come in healthy. He needs to come in ready to show every skill set he has, and he needs to earn an actual role on this team before they have to put up opening rosters around early October. If he can do those things, he's got a shot to really show us what he can do, because I feel like next year is the make or break for him. He is on the bubble right now, and if he doesn't, like Dylan alluded to, you could probably trade him in a big package eventually for a star as one of those outgoing pieces. But you kind of hope Whitehead can show you what he can do and why he was drafted. But I think right now he needs to show he can be healthy. I think right now he's 2 years behind the 8 ball, and this year is super important for him to show he can do more than just shoot threes. I think the defense has been all right, but the interior game, that to me next year is going to tell me if Dariq Whitehead is a long-term part of this team or not. So he really has to earn a role this summer and have a very strong training camp to warrant being a potential piece next year for us.
The last thing I wanted to ask you guys about was, so this was the starting lineup yesterday: Beekman, Keon, Zaire, Wofford, Drew Timme. So no CJ, no D'Lo, no Claxton. Why did this take so long? Look, as much as I love D'Lo, we know what D'Lo is. We know what Cam Johnson is. Cam Johnson shouldn't be here. I don't understand why D'Lo is here. Why did it take so long, Dylan, to get to this point where it's like, okay, let's play. Look, substitute Reese Beekman for Killian Hayes, whatever. But these are the lineups you should be using to see what you have. Why did this take so long?
Do you want the crazy answer that nobody could ever possibly think of?
Yeah.
It's because Sean Marks is an idiot.
Whoa! Oh my gosh!
I know it's crazy. It sounds like something that has never been spoken into the universe before, but the guy's an idiot. There's no other answer to it. The guy sucks at his job.
I mean, I think it's. I do think it's that simple and plain. I was looking for a more complex answer, but I think sometimes the simplest answer is the correct one. I wish there was another answer, but
I do too. I'm so tired of having to say it. I mean, shit. How many times can fans point out the obvious mistakes that a dude has made over the past 6-7 years, and the guy still has a job? Like, if I fucked up at my job at the rate that Sean Marks has messed up his job, I would have been fired after the second offense. This guy's going on his 11th offense. I mean, if you took offenses in terms of mistakes made by a general manager, this dude would be locked up for 2 life sentences. Like, that's the amount of offenses this guy has. He sucks at his job. He's not good at what he does. He is a poor negotiator. He is a horrible player management GM. He can't keep stars happy, but he's great at sucking off role players. Like it's just there's really nothing to him as a GM that stands out and says, wow, I trust this guy with my organization, with the team that I love. No, I don't trust this guy. I wouldn't trust this guy watching a dog, let alone running an organization. So to me, there's nothing that surprises me with this guy anymore. And everything that we want, he usually does the opposite. So whatever. The guy's an idiot.
John, same question to you. I mean, this is what we should have been doing all season. Cam Johnson shouldn't have been here. You can substitute some of these names, but this concept of playing all the young guys, playing them 25, 30 minutes, getting them all minutes, this should have been the game plan from game one, from October. Why did it take this long until the final 10 games or so? Less than that.
Yeah, it should have been from
to this point. Yeah.
This all comes down to Sean Marks and Joe Desai's inability to lead their front office the proper way, because at the end of the day, their messaging has been inconsistent for going on 8 to 9 to 10 years right now. And this is the year where everybody's supposed to be on the same message. What did Marks say when him and Jordy at the introductory press conference? The goals this year, everybody's to be aligned from players to front office to coaching, because it's not going to look like how it's supposed to this year, because we're not trying to compete for anything. Instead, he let Jordy run the ship the first 2 months, won a lot of games. And he's like, oh my gosh, we got to trade Dennis and Doe away. But then you brought D'Lo back, so that kind of negated the work you did to lose games, because we were 1 point the fourth seed or fourth odds with the Hornets, and then we started winning that month of February. We were half a game out of a playing position with the Bulls. That wasn't supposed to happen. That to me is like the whole knucklehead thing about this. You're not supposed to win near the play-in, but this team for some reason believed we had power in our hands to do it, because Sean and Joe allow it. They don't control the ship. I don't even know if Sean Marks has a voice anymore with what he does. I know he placates people. I know he did what the superstars wanted because they hated his guts. I know Bridges didn't want to be here when he said, Bridges, you're going to help us recruit a star. No, I'm not. I want to go play with the Knicks. And now you have Jordy coming in saying, listen, I'm not going to tank this year because my reputation, my legacy matters more than your job security. And Sean's like, go for it. Okay. I mean, Sean, you have 1,000 cat lives. So would I expect anything else from you than to say go for it? Because you think you have ultimate protection. This is the problem. We have two leaders who don't communicate effectively, who don't get people on the same page because they don't want to hurt their feelings. When you're afraid to be honest with your players and coaches about doing this properly, it means you can't be trusted to lead the front office because you don't want to step on anybody's toes. This year was about protecting the lottery because we don't even have a starting core right now. We don't even have a huge main foundational piece. Yes, Cam Thomas is very debatable, but this year was about trying to get the best odds possible. And through allowing this to happen the way it did, now you have 6 odds, which for the last 6 years is around 6 through 9. And we have a higher shot. We have a 27 to 28% best shot at the 7th or 8th pick than we do top 4. Is that what this was all worth, giving the Rockets those valuable Suns and Mavs picks to draw 7 to 8? No, it was not. But the organization has done this time and time again, where they throw assets away like it's free candy on a Halloween night because they can't get out of their own freaking heads that they're not good at this. So yeah, Gary, if we don't get a top 3 pick this summer, who knows what the hell is going to happen? Because this front office likes to do things loosey-goosey, ass backwards, because it's all they know how to do.
Well, if we get a top 3 pick, it's because, the ping pong balls bounced our way. It's not because of, you got it because you lucked into it, right? You paid your bills because you won a lottery, right? Like that's, it's not a winning. I mean, maybe it works, right? Like it's random and maybe your balls get picked. But yeah, this was not a strategy at all at any point. If you were going to go for it, you should have went for it. If you were going to tank, you should have tanked. You should have played these. And by tanking, I don't mean like shooting at the wrong basket and playing Reese Beekman at the center. I mean,
I'd be cool with it. I'd be cool with it.
I mean, you saw what the Raptors did this. I mean, Gary, you saw what the Raptors did this year. Super strategic. Even with the easiest schedule, they're still losing games because they know where they are in the food chain of things. They actually have a foundational superstar potential piece in Scotty Barnes. We don't have those pieces, and we still did this more ass backwards than the Raptors did. So, yeah, Gary, it goes on the front office for just not enforcing the policy. This lineup of Timmy and Watford, Beekman, and Johnson, yeah, it's freaking awful. But that's what the basis was this year. But you put good vibes and good culture as more important than wherever your lottery pick falls. That is egregious. Good vibes and good culture doesn't win you a title alone. The talent does. So this organization thinks that Jordan can transform anybody into a superstar overnight. Damn, we might be set back more than 4 to 5 years. And that won't change unless the front office look themselves in the mirror and starts making better decisions and actually making their jobs mean something. That's when we're going to start seeing real change.
We're never really going to compete. We're never going to be a perennial contender with Sean Marks as our GM. Like it's a reality of the matter. Like even if you drafted Cooper and AJ, he still doesn't know how to build a team, right? And I'm just being real. Like if we won the lottery the next 2 years and got Cooper and AJ, he still can't build a roster. We know this because he couldn't fill out the roster that had KD and Kyrie and James Harden. He can't fill out a roster. So, like, I mean,
at the end of the day, it was a very simple route you could have taken. This year, you should have taken the tank seriously and bottomed out. You should have moved role players for assets to expand on the assets that you have. So this way, when it comes time to move on for a star, you will still have over 10 first-round picks to maneuver to build out the rest of the roster. That was step one. Step two was landing a top 2 pick and getting what you needed this year and moving up and grabbing another high-end prospect in that like 14 through 18 range. Next season could have been your culture year because you can't build a culture without players that are going to be on this team for more than 2 years.
Right.
None of the guys on this team outside of maybe Cam Thomas, and I'm saying maybe because there is a chance that he's traded within the next 2 years.
Yeah, I'd say it's more likely Clowney's on the team long term than
I agree. There's genuinely a route where all 15 guys on the team currently aren't on the team in 2 years. Like, to me, you're not building a culture. You're fucking up your future. So this year should have been taken seriously in terms of tanking. Next year, after you draft 4 or 5 guys, that should be your culture year. You want to overachieve a bit, do your thing, but you're still too young to win most of those games. You land another top 5 pick, and from there is when you start really building that so-called culture and vibes that Sean Marks just loves to double fist. There's nothing about what this current team has that shows any form of grit, any form of vibes, any form of culture. This is a team that is flat out playing for themselves, knowing that they're probably not going to be here much longer. So for me, this was an absolute failure of the season. And even if you find a way to land in the top 2, you already have the sense that Marks is going to fuck it up by trying to make a move on a Giannis. So if you can get through August without fucking up and you somehow land one of Flag, Harper, or Fears, that's solid for me. I can live with that, move into next season, and take that tank seriously because that top 4 next year makes this top 4 look like a cakewalk. And that's saying something because 2 of these top 4 guys this year are potential superstar caliber players. So they really need to figure it out and start listening to the people that actually watch this team all day long rather than a GM that sits in a nice shiny office doing absolute fuck all. They got to start trying to figure this out.
That's why Plan A baffles me because you think about it. If Johnson and Claxton weren't on this team still, the honest thing wouldn't even be a conversation because we would have nothing to match. But you look at their salaries, 40 mil. You have some young prospects on this team. Like, if this is what their whole plan was, if the draft was Plan B, then why the hell did we give away the valuable Mavs and Suns picks? There's your package right there for Giannis on a silver platter. It's like they ruined themselves by not thinking about the draft as priority 1. Instead, this draft, what I'm basing it off of, has been priority B just because of how lackadaisical the leadership was this year, that they didn't feel that the draft pick was as valuable as getting the star. We need the vet sheet to put on a competitive product with the young guys because we want Giannis to look that go, hey, if I was here, we're going to sell tickets and it's going to be gravy, baby. But no, if you put Giannis in this position right now, that calf injury that he has, it will break because he's the guy that's played 40, 50 minutes a night just to give this team a chance to be a playing seed. So the problem is this Plan A doesn't make sense right now because there's no core right now to pair with Giannis unless you're going to throw all the assets you have for another guy to come join him. Like, if that was the whole Plan A, it just doesn't make sense because we're not in a position to do it right now. And if the draft was never your priority, you can't be leading this team then because the draft is our only shot of building something right now. Whereas if you get Giannis, what can he build by himself with no depth? That's the problem.
I gotta wrap this up, John. I wanted to get into those odds. Can you go? Are you available tomorrow to go live? Are you free tomorrow?
I'm gonna try to.
All right. Well, Dylan, you're in the office tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I'm in the office tomorrow and Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday. What day do you want to do a live draft? A mock draft?
Let's see. I'll look at my schedule right now.
I
look pretty open Thursday as of right now, but if not, we can shoot for Saturday.
All right, so you're Thursday or Saturday. When's our next game? Tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So we'll do a live show. We'll do a show Wednesday. Let me know if you're available. If not, we'll just do everything on Wednesday. But let me know
Yeah,
if you're
what?
available tomorrow, John.
Why don't we do it all Wednesday? I won't be available Friday, but I'll be available Wednesday and the weekend to finish up the season.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll do Wednesday, and then you can do a mock on Thursday, Dylan.
Thursday or Saturday. Yeah, I'll have a better
All right.
understanding of Thursday, probably Wednesday night. So we'll figure that out. But yeah,
We'll text. All right. Appreciate you guys. I gotta wrap. I gotta take care of something real quick. We'll pick this up again Wednesday. We'll be back, and then either Thursday or Saturday we'll have the mock draft. It's February 7th. It's April 7th, 2025. From Texas to the world. Thank you and God bless.
Peace.